Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, a hearty welcome to our today's AIES talk with the theme of security challenges at the Horn of Africa. Our partner is not yet ready, and I hope he will be soon. We had a test just 2 days ago, and everything worked out very well. So far, I'm very optimistic that we will be in the situation to do it almost as planned. Maybe in the meantime, a few words about the situation generally and why we took this issue as our today's AIES talk theme. The reason is that probably most Europeans and most Austrians do underestimate the importance of the Horn of Africa region for Europe. Why is it so important? The reason is the geostrategic situation of the Horn of Africa. At the entrance from the Red Sea into the Gulf of Aden or the Indian Ocean, or vice versa from the Indian Ocean into the Red Sea, Suez Canal, and the Mediterranean. And insofar, this region is the geostrategic link between Europe on the one hand and the Indo-Pacific region at the other hand. And the Indo-Pacific region is supposed to be the most dynamic and probably most important global region in the 21st century. It will be the pivot of economic, demographic, and political development. And insofar is the question of security and stability of the whole region of the Horn of Africa of utmost importance for us Europeans. So far, it is not only one country, and therefore we also choose a selection of 4 countries to talk about. On the one hand, Somalia, second also Ethiopia, third Sudan, and fourth Yemen. Of course, there's also Eritrea, and there is Egypt, and there is Djibouti and other countries. But we took this selection because we thought within around about 1 hour, it is not possible to talk too long and too much about every involved country. And so we started out with a prominent political figure of Somalia, probably the most fragile country of the whole region. I hope that Minister Zakariye will be with us very soon. And maybe before he is able to do so, we just look back a little bit into the past, into the history of Somalia. Somalia is a huge country. I mean, if you look to the fact that at least officially it has double the size of Germany, and it stretches almost the whole Horn of Africa in the southern dimension. It has become an independent state in 1960. So far, it's a pretty young state. And it used to be very fragile from the beginning. Then it was shaped in the after-colonial period out of 2 state units. There was British Somalia, British Somaliland, and also Italian Somaliland. And this together was shaped into Somalia. And Somalia is now, I just get a telephone call. Please excuse my interruption. I will inform you soon. Hello? Hello? Minister Zakariye is already waiting at the other line, but there are obviously problems to join. And insofar, I hope we will manage this pretty soon. I just started out with a few words about the situation in Somalia, and maybe in the meantime, I will try to continue until we can have his picture and we will have contact with him. You know, after this unification of British and Italian Somaliland, the young states, of course, was almost from the beginning in a very fragile situation due to tribe structures and, of course, different backgrounds and different political interests that existed. And what we can see now is that in the meantime also, this fragile state has developed in a direction that you could see at least three political de facto units are existing. On the one hand, it is Somalia. On the other hand, it is the so-called Puntland in the northern part, and it is also Somaliland, which is more or less the same size or the same construction as the former British Somaliland used to be. And this fragile state, Somalia, also had some more challenges, some more security challenges. On the one hand, probably most of you will remember that there was a pirate problem. A pirate problem on the sea, where not only European Union, but the whole group of states went into the so-called Atalanta mission in order to fight the pirates and to secure shipping alongside the Horn of Africa. I mean, if you look back, it was probably unbelievable that in the beginning of the 21st century, there should be a pirate problem, but there was. And this came from the Somali coast. And it was not only the pirates, but also within the country, we were confronted with quite some challenges. There was the so-called, or there has been the so-called Al-Shabaab militias, a very extreme Islamist movement that had links to Al-Qaeda and also to Daesh, the so-called Islamic State, and that occupied big parts of the country, especially in the south and in the center. So the government of Somalia had real strong authority, more or less only in the capital Mogadishu and around. And insofar, this country certainly was confronted from the beginning with real challenges. In the last few years, in addition to that, it also was another factor that brought quite some problems. An immense drought. 4 raining seasons fell out. And this, of course, brought the country in a very, very difficult situation. Many people just having hunger and not being able to feed themselves, so that quite a lot of UN programs had to be established in order to help the people to get rid of the worst forms of hunger. And in this situation, of course, it is not easy to make elections, to have the chance to stabilize the country, especially when also the environment is very unstable. And so far, we are also looking into the neighboring country, into Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the second most populated country of Africa. It has already around about 115 million inhabitants, and it has around about 80 ethnic groups, also 2 religions, Christianity. Around about 2/3 of the population are Christians, and on the other hand, of course, also a huge Muslim population. And it has many big ethnicities. The biggest one, the Oromo, then of course also the Amhara, and others. And in this situation, there was a change of power in the last years. And the new Prime Minister of Ethiopia tried to get stability for the country. And the first thing he did, he tried to make peace with another neighbor, Eritrea. And this worked out very positively. And he even got the Peace Nobel Prize for this activity. And everybody was hoping that this important country would now go into a period and into a phase of a new stability. But it came the other way around. What happened? The Prime Minister declared more or less military actions against one of the ethnicities, the Tigrays. The Tigrays that used to be involved into highest power in Ethiopia. And in the first phase of these activities, it seemed that he was successful and that the central government in Addis Ababa also could take over the control in Tigray region. But it's turned around. And in the moment, we are confronted with a situation that Tigray forces are marching versus the capital. And so far, we also wanted to ask Mr. Zakariye to give us his comment from the immediate neighborhood, how he is looking at this new development in Ethiopia. What is his judgment? And this is important because there are also around about 7 or 8 million ethnic Somalis living in Ethiopia. Another country of high interest in this context, of course, is a neighboring country to Ethiopia, Sudan. Sudan, where we had a rebellion against the President al-Bashir, a rebellion against the power structures of the Congress Party, and a new government that was shaped out of a majority of civilians and only a smaller part of military people, under so-called Prime Minister Hamdok. Everybody hoped, and it was foreseen, that there should be elections, that there should be consequent preparations, there should be a new phase between Sudan and the international community. But all the hopes did not come out in the way it was supposed to, because just a few weeks ago, the military leader, General al-Burhan, more or less dissolved the government, even imprisoned the prime minister, and the military overtook the power in the country once again. Of course, the population did not just tolerate this situation, and there were huge protests. And so far, we are now in a situation that we also can see that, General al-Burhan changed his mind, and he called back Prime Minister Hamdok into office. And now we are in a new situation where there is a civilian and military combined government again. And we only can hope that this will work out better than it did in the phase number one. Yeah, the fourth country we wanted to look into, of course, is Yemen. Yemen is at the other side. It's not at the African side, but at the Arabian Peninsula. And also Yemen used to be in quite some stability challenges years ago. Why? Because in former times, there were two Yemen. The northern part with the capital of Sana'a, and the southern part with the capital of Aden. There are different ethnicities, different religions, different tribes, different power structures, and insofar we are once again in a phase that there is instability in the country, and not only instability due to a civil war between the Houthis in the north with the capital of Sana'a, and the south with the capital of Aden. But there was also an intervention from outside. The Saudi Crown Prince organized an initiative of Gulf states against the Houthis, because the Houthis also inflicted the borderline with Saudi Arabia, and a real war between the Houthis and the Gulf states broke out. And in this situation, also Iran took at least partly the position of backing the Houthis, and the Houthis were so strong that they could withstand these operations from outside, and now they are once again in control of the northern part of Yemen, on the one hand, and on the other hand, they also are now fighting in Marib, the control of one of the biggest cities of the countries in the northeastern part. And the fighting over there is not only for oil and resources around Marib, but it seems to be a decisive battle because experts tell us that the one who will control Marib probably will have more or less, or will be the winner of this battle. And insofar, we are looking forward to the views of Minister Zakariye. Maybe I tell you in very short words what he has done up to now. Minister Haji Abdi Zakariye, this is his full name, was born in 1958 in a small town, the countryside of Somalia, before his parents brought him into Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia. There he went into high school, and after high school he studied agricultural engineering at the University of Riyadh, and also at the State University of New York in Albany, the capital of the New York State. After this, he went back to Somalia and overtook many functions, many important functions in Somalia. And now I can see Minister Zakariye. Yeah, it was quite a challenge to get you into our program. A hearty welcome to you, Minister Zakariye. I was just trying to introduce our audience to your CV. I told people that you were born in the countryside, brought to Mogadishu. You studied in Riyadh, agricultural engineering, and also at the State University of New York. And then you went back and became one of the outstanding politicians. Being a member of parliament, he still is, but also as a minister for information, for education, and for foreign affairs, and even as a presidential candidate at the elections in 2012. And of course, he still is not at the end of his political career, and therefore we now want to ask him. I I also tried to explain a little bit to our audience what are the security problems in the region, in Somalia, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, and in Yemen. And I now want to ask you, after this welcoming, Mr. Minister, how do you see the security challenges, and how, what is your judgment on the overall situation in Somalia at the moment?
Thank you very much and welcome. I'm really happy to meet you, and I thank you for the opportunity that you have offered to me. Well, I know that your Excellency, you are the former Minister of Defense of your country, Austria, and you are very active in humanitarian and diplomatic, particularly in Africa and Horn of Africa. This is very important. This meeting is very important. Actually, the security situation in the region actually is in a mess. Starting from Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia. Somalia situation is a bit different now from the Sudan and the Ethiopians. It was ongoing for the last 10 years. There is a local militia, which is called Shabab al-Mujahideen. These are a low intensity conflict, just been going for the last 10 years. And it's protracted because of certain mistakes from the government itself. This is asymmetrical warfare. It's not symmetrical warfare. And the methods and measures that the government of Somalia is using is a symmetrical warfare, which means the government is not using its soft power. It's only using one type of power, which is hard power, and that hard power also is there's a foreign troops component that cannot be won over a local militia, which is part of the Somalis. We have in the parliament, but I personally suggested that the government must use more soft power, which is 4 or 5 components, including the media, the incentives, and things like that. The hard power is one of that components. Recently, the United States of America, 2 weeks ago, actually proposed that the Somali government should negotiate with the Shabab. So the situation is a very low conflict situation. We are now in a campaign in election for the MPs, Member of Parliaments, and then it will be after that the presidential election, which I'm also one of the candidates. In Ethiopia, it's a bit hard. It's really very.
May I interrupt you and maybe just shortly ask you a few questions to Somalia?
Yes, go ahead.
There were some reports, that even to go to the elections, to go voting, might be dangerous for people due to the fact that Al-Shabaab militias are against it and want to prevent people to vote. How do you see this situation?
I couldn't follow. I think the line is not perfect. It's cutting. Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah.
We have a very bad line. Can you say again, sir?
Yeah, we can hear you. This is okay. Maybe if you just take it, we only can see the upper part of your head. So maybe now it's better. Yeah, much better now. Okay. So
Yes.
maybe you tell us a little bit about the Al-Shabaab militias and also the question whether the pirate situation is resolved or whether there are still challenges.
Piracy is a very minimal now. There is no accidents for the last 2 years on piracy because there is an international forces, including European forces, United States forces, who are preventing this from this to happen. But there is another type of piracy, which is the looted Somali waters, marine resources from trawlers from some countries who are actually engaged in these practices, which is illegal and unreported fishing practices. And this was what has triggered the piracy in the past. This type of piracy or unreported and illegal fishing has not been yet resolved. It has to be resolved because this has actually a big damage to the coastal communities. Some of them are very close to the EEC, economic zone of Somalia. They hunt the fish and the other marine wealth nearby towns. And, so the local fisherman is still in a very bad situation, actually.
Yeah.
And as I told you, Shabab is not very strong. The government is trying very well with the African Union contingency, but the missing component of overcoming the Shabab is the soft power. We are not using soft power. We are only using hard power.
I see.
They are melting in Somali public. If your brother is next door and he is a Shabab, you don't know unless you have a good intelligence.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us also a little bit about the drought, because we were informed, by United Nations that there is a huge problem, that there are millions of people that suffer hunger due to the fact that there was no rain in the last periods. How do you see that situation?
Yes, the drought is very severe due to El Nino phenomena. Last year it was El Nino, which we have huge floods, and I think this is because of the climate change. Climate change has affected Somalia very, very, very severely. This year we are in a rainy season, but there is no rain at all. And most of the Somalis are pastoralists, so the animals are dying. People are actually having problems in getting water. This is a very severe drought. And I think already millions are close to starvation, because most of them, they live in their livestock. The livestock is without water, without grazing pastorals. That's a big problem, really. I think we should face. And what makes more severe the problem is that we are in an election. We are very much focusing on the election rather than on supporting those communities, pastoralist communities who have this drought.
And how do you see that the elections can bring a positive change for the country?
We hope so, yes. Obviously, leadership is very important for politics. If the people elect a suitable leader, I think it will be okay. We need to change. There's no doubt about this. The current government was the president was the last 5 years, 4 years almost, and 10 months, and nothing much has been changed in the substances of the important sectors like economy, like security, like the unity of the country, like the sovereignty of the country. This has not been made any progress. Therefore, we need a good leadership to be elected by the people. Our election it will be very difficult for you to understand. It's a tribal-based election. So you can say selection rather than election. Each clan will allocate 101 person to elect one MP. All clans, each clan has to do that. We have clans and sub-clans. We had parties. For example, this flag behind me is my party, and we are trying to have one man, one vote, one person, one vote election. Some of the regional governors, or what we call regional presidents, have used this, and therefore we have to go, instead of having problems with them, we have to go to that route. We have been doing this for the last 20 years, actually, from 2000 in Arta Peace Conference, which I was part of it. But it's not bringing good leadership, because it is based on blood, not on qualifications and quality and things like that, as the European election. Unless we have that type, international election, democratic election, I think getting a good leadership is actually 50-50.
Yeah. Now we hope that it will turn for the better, and we wish you all the best. You just were starting about talking, telling us a little bit about the situation in Ethiopia. How do you see the situation between government and the Tigray state or ethnicity?
Well, I think Ethiopia situation is very precarious. The Tigrayans, TPLF, announced that they are about 130 kilometers of the capital city, Addis Ababa, and there have been a lot of mediation from the United States and from the European Union and African Union. All is not done well. The Prime Minister is insisting that this war must be won by the government, as well as the TPLF. And there are other forces who join the TPLF, like parts of Oromo Liberation, Oromo Liberation Front. What I cannot foresee is a solution, a very close solution for the situation in Ethiopia. If these forces reach Addis Ababa, that will be a very grave situation. We expect that there will be a civil war, and that's too bad for the region, particularly for Somalia. The impact will be very great, and I think the Europeans and the other democratic forces must engage intensively in order to prevent this.
And do you think maybe Europeans could play a role in helping or assisting, between the government and the Tigrays?
There must be a mediation, a real mediation. Up to now, United States and African Union are engaged, but I cannot see any prominent role of the Europeans. And the Europeans are actually more understandable to the Africans rather than the Americans. So there is a role, yes. There is a role, and it has to be immediately, as soon as possible. Obviously, you are one of the prominent people, and you and your organization can organize this as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Because the war is going on, and this is 110 million country, which we have the longest border with them, and there is a Somali region also within Ethiopia that will couple the problems. And I think we have a trouble in Somalia. Besides this no conflict situation and the drought, then another refugee of 110 million, we it's unsustainable, really.
Yeah, this certainly is quite some challenge due to many challenges and problems that are already existing. Maybe let us say a few words also about Sudan. Now, Prime Minister Hamdok being called back as Prime Minister by General Al-Burhan. How do you see the stability of the new government, and what are solutions you could imagine for the country?
Yeah, the Prime Minister has been elected few months ago, and it seems to me that he's not taken seriously for negotiated settlement. He is still stuck up for winning, and there is no winning on the horizon. Likewise, the TPLF is hardened war veterans, and they have done this before 30 years ago to topple Mengistu Haile Mariam, and they are hoping that they might recapture again Addis Ababa and come to the power. But that will not be easy because we foresee that there will be a problem ahead against with the Oromos who are now in power. The Prime Minister is from Oromo ethnic group, so there is also Amhara. So that three groups makes the majority of Ethiopia, and there is no concrete there is no concrete program for them. If they capture Addis Ababa, what will they do? What they are going to do? And for that reason, the most appropriate way is to stop this war and go to negotiation. Otherwise, there will be a disaster. There will be actually a catastrophe. That in the whole region. In the whole region of Africa.
The situation in Ethiopia probably is the most important and the most dangerous situation of the whole region. And the whole region, you know, from Egypt to Somalia, is a region that comprehends more than 300 million people. This is not something, but it is really quite something, I would say. Yeah. So maybe we also can look a little bit across the sea to Yemen. How do you see the situation in Yemen at the moment between Houthis and the government of the south, between the Gulf mission and the Houthis fighting this war now already for quite some years with, I don't know, around about 400,000 killed people, most of them kids, children under 5 years. And so far, how do you see the situation in Yemen?
Well, I think the Yemenis war is a proxy between some Arabian Gulf countries and Iran. And unless we have a kind of settlement between those two countries, particularly Saudi Arabia and Iran, it's a very complex situation, very complex war. It is, on one side, a religious-based war, on the other side, it's a geopolitical and geographical problem. Therefore, Houthis are, as you know, Shia, and the other Yemenis are Sunnis, yes. Therefore, the solution will be I think there is a negotiation right now going on between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Yeah.
That said, the Houthis are now having an upper hand because I know they have already they are closing in Ma'rab, which is a very important region, a petroleum region. Unless there is a kind of settlement, political settlement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, I think it will be very, very difficult to stop this war. And the Iran government was mediating for the last 2 months, Saudi Arabia and Iran. If that continues, I think there will be a solution. Otherwise, the war will be protracted, and it's a very dangerous war. We have refugees from Yemen. That's why we are sandwiched between two wars now: the Ethiopian war and the Yemeni war. So it's very bad, really. And, I think
that's right. I mean, I agree. What one can see is that there were already some conferences between Iran and Saudi Arabia trying to have a dialogue on different questions between the two countries, and this certainly will be a basis for making peace in Yemen and to find some solution, because this also brought quite some humanitarian problems and questions.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe at the end, I also go to another neighbor. This is South Sudan, with its challenges from the beginning of independence 10 years ago, and which brought a situation that the most important tribes of the country, the Dinka on the one hand, presented by President Salva Kiir, and the Nuer, more or less presented by the first Vice President Riek Machar, came into not only a quarrel, but into the situation of fighting against each other. How do you see the situation? Has this already been stabilized in the last month, or what is the de facto development now?
I think South Sudan is now on the way to a peaceful settlement. The problem now is the Sudan Republic. It's more dangerous now, although the Mr. Hamdouk Prime Minister has been reinstated by the military. If Republic Sudan continues to be in shambles, then South Sudan will be affected very much. But South Sudan is a bit normalizing situation, although still there's problems relating to the powers, political powers between Ethiopia and the group. I think this is also the Ethiopian war affects, because there are Nuers who are in the southern part of Ethiopia, they call it southern region. Unless Sudan and Ethiopia is been settled that problem, then it will emanate again to South Sudan, and which means that the whole region of Horn of Africa is in jeopardy, actually.
Yeah. Maybe at the end, may I ask you the question: what do you see? I mean, what can the big actors like America, China, Europe, or Russia do in order to assist in this situation? Are they positive? What are the necessary steps to be done in order to stabilize the overall situation in the region?
Well, I think there is a big role for the big powers to take to ease these wars in the Horn of Africa. Horn of Africa is a misfortunate region, actually. I think it has been in color for the last years. It's a very fertile region in terms of natural resources, in terms of the importance of its geographical location in the world, particularly Somalia and Ethiopia, Djibouti, Sudan, all these countries lay in a very important geopolitics. Therefore, the world, the great powers have a stake here to intervene positively in terms of humanitarian, in terms of peace talks, in terms of diplomatic shuttle between the warring factions. And I think the European Union are the most effective one in order to, because they have been colonizing this region, these countries, and they have still have their friends, and the language and the culture also, takes its great share. Your country, Austria, is not a colonial country, and also Nordic countries are not colonial countries. They can have a great work here in terms of diplomatic negotiations and in terms of humanitarian initiatives.
Okay. Yeah, Your Excellency, thank you very much for being ready. And even if there were troubles at the first run to get in contact, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure. It was a first overview, and I hope we can continue at another opportunity to get a little bit deeper into the region and the challenges the region is confronted with. I'm still optimistic that together we can master even difficult situations. And so far, I just want to tell you that we wish you all the best also for the elections. Not only good outcome, but also good participation of the population and high acceptance, whatever the result will be, because we cannot forecast it. The voters will have to decide. So far, thank you so much, all the best, and I hope to see you and meet you soon.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that you gave me this opportunity, and I'm ready for any time to share with you our ideas. And I think this is very, very great. Thank you to know you, Mr. Minister, also, Excellency.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe just for our audience, I want to tell our next AIES talk will happen next week on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And we will talk about the situation in Libya, the question whether Saif Gaddafi can become president, what should be the consequences, whether there is a chance to reunite the country. We will talk with one of the men with the best knowledge. It is Mr. Pustai. We have talked already a few times about it, and so far you are invited for next week at the same time as this week, and we are looking forward to our next meeting. Thank you very much, and all the best, and a nice evening.
Guten Tag.
Okay, guten Tag.
Ja.
Alles gut.